So excited today to return to the great sport of beach volleyball. It's a sport that I feel as an Australian we should have covered a lot more on this podcast, but apparently we just have not done a lot on this sport. But I'm so excited today to learn more about the career of one of our Paris Olympians, made his Olympic debut a couple of months back in Paris, Mark Nicolaidis, and he's here to learn about that career and everything else in between about the great sport. Mark, welcome to Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thanks very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to learning about this because, as I said, I do feel a bit bad that we haven't had many beach volleyballers on the show because I associate the beach, Australia, like it feels like this should be something that we're talking about constantly. So apologies on behalf of the show that we've ignored a bit of the beach volleyball. But one thing I want to start off with straight away though, Mark, we're recording this, 5 months removed from the Olympics, 4 months removed from the Olympics. It feels crazy to think that much time has gone past, but for yourself, I mean, you're still living on cloud nine, it seems. I mean, this is something that you dreamt about for so long, and we're now sitting here talking to you as an Olympian. Have you calmed down yet? Have you come off your high from the Olympics from July and August?
Oh, I think definitely come down a little bit, but the whole year itself has kind of just been a blur. The whole pre-qualifying period in the lead up, and then you've got the month or two surrounding the games, and then how we qualified was, those few weeks just beforehand. So not knowing where we were going to go, and then the kind of quick switch to when we won the qualifier, got selected, and then we were on a plane basically a couple of days later, and then the 3 weeks of being in the village, and now, the post games, all the events, everything that's happening. It kind of wasn't just the Olympics itself. It's the whole year. But definitely it's come and gone now. It's flown past, and but it's still something that's changed my life, and you think about it almost every day.
Because I've seen you in a few interviews since Paris have described it as like the best couple of weeks of your life and kind of just everything along those lines. Because that's one thing I always love hearing about from Olympians. It's when they return, how it can change their life, because you get 3 additional letters after your name. You're always OLY, but you're speaking to school kids, you're going to events, you're wearing the shirt right now that you're wearing right now, kind of just as this different thing. I mean, do you think it's changed your life? I'm going to start with a deep question straight away, Mark. I mean, has it changed your life right now as of December 2024, a couple of months after the Olympics?
Well, I'd like to say that, I just still think of myself as the exact same person, but, and I really struggled to kind of quantify what it really meant kind of as I got selected. And then even after I went, I was always of the opinion, you're not an Olympian until you go and compete. So even once you're selected, you're not an Olympian until you've been there, you've competed, you've done it. And then kind of once you do that, it doesn't seem like life's changed that much, but I think as a bigger picture, now that everyth's kind of slowed down and I can look back on it, you really see the gravity of what the Olympics is, and you were a part of that. And even just realizing how big your support network is of people that you had no idea about, that will reach out and say, saw your game, loved it. People will catch up with you out of the blue. People come up to you in random spots. I had someone at the airport yesterday come up and say, hey, great job in Paris. I was just in plain clothes, and I was like, wow, how would anyone know who I am? So yeah, I think it definitely changes your life. And when you've had a positive experience like I have, I think you can kind of play into that and really make it special.
A few more followers on Instagram, I can imagine as well. Just went up a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit.
Just a few more on that. I love one thing. I want to learn about your journey in the sport, Mark, and obviously how you got to it. But one of the best things I think I've ever read on a bio is on your bio on the Australian Olympic team website. It literally starts off with Brisbane's Mark Nicolaidis started playing indoor volleyball at school as a 14-year-old, and within 2 years, he was a pirate. Now, there's obviously context to that. But, like, I mean, if I'm reading that and I have no idea who the Queensland Pirates are, I'm straight away going like, whoa, like, how do you become a pirate from playing volleyball? That's very exciting. So can we just clarify that you're not actually a pirate? That was the team that you played for, correct?
Correct. Yeah. No, even now you saying that, I had no idea because I fully understand the context, but that's quite funny actually.
You don't have
I
many
haven't heard
people
that
contacting
before.
you like going, are you a pirate? Like, can you help me get into
Yeah.
piracy?
Oh, no, that's very funny. Yeah. No, played for the Queensland Pirates. So yeah, no, definitely not a pirate.
Definitely not a pirate. That's the one big question I wanted to clarify here on the podcast. But take us through that journey, Matt. Like what drew you into, obviously at the time, indoor volleyball, just volleyball itself? What sort of drew you to playing that sport growing up?
So both my brothers, I got two older brothers, and they both were massive into sport, all sports. As was I. We were very competitive when we were younger, and they both played through high school. Were both volleyball captain at Brisbane Boys College, and I would go with mum to pick them up from training in the afternoon when I was in primary school. And so I'd kind of see them play, and then the coach would let me kind of come down after a couple of the sessions and we'd muck around with the ball. And so it was basically like kind of that love started there, and I just wanted to follow in my brother's footsteps, and didn't get to start playing until I was in year 8. And the moment I started playing, I fell in love. I was like, this is it. Because I played basketball for 5 years before I started volleyball. And yeah, literally the moment I started volleyball, my basketball career was done. It was just like, it was just so fun. And I loved the fact that you had to play as a team. There was no individual players. You can't touch the ball twice in a row. So if you don't play as a team, or one person's not pulling their weight, you can't win. So I think that was the biggest thing that drew me to the sport. And then it kind of took over my life from there. I just took every opportunity I could to play. So to turn from school volleyball to social on like a Monday night, and then turned into club on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And then it turned into, social beach volleyball on a Wednesday night, and then, another social competition on Friday. And before you know it, it's every
Week.
day of the week.
Yeah.
And yeah, so every opportunity I took to play more.
Fantastic. And was that then aspirations looking forward? Was the Olympics a goal? I mean, obviously indoor volleyball, a little bit different in Australia than it is, say, for beach volleyball, and the prospects of going to an Olympics. But I mean, was that still something you looked at as something to achieve?
I think at the very start, definitely not. Like I was a very overweight kid. So I was lucky I had hand-eye coordination. But never really thought of how far I could take it until like I went to my first Queensland trials, knew absolutely nobody. I ate lunch with mum outside just by myself, and then kind of made that first indoor team when I was 14, and kind of from there it progressed, and I saw the higher level of what volleyball could be. And even then, it wasn't really Olympics in mind. It was like, okay, I just want to chase whatever the next highest thing is. So it was stayed indoor, and then it was, chasing the Pirates stuff when I was younger, and seeing those older guys. And it was like, okay, what's the next level I can get to? And just chasing that.
Because We had Kerry Potthast on the show many years ago, and I know we sort of learned about her journey that led to beach volleyball and obviously the challenges facing Australia in indoor volleyball because, people maybe outside of Australia not very familiar with our history in it. I mean, obviously Sydney, you qualify in a home Olympics, a couple of appearances after that, but it's obviously a lot more challenging for us to make it in indoor volleyball. So I always am intrigued with particularly beach volleyball players who maybe make that journey from indoor into beach, is that the Olympics are enticing them into that or kind of things like that. Because, I guess if you, as an Australian, want to make the Olympics in the sport, beach volleyball is your more realistic route, isn't it, rather than indoor volleyball?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of moving parts to it. So the indoor pathway, you've got a lot bigger opportunities to go and play professionally overseas, earn good coin, less opportunity to represent your country in terms of the big events, just in terms of kind of how we've gone in the last 12 years in the indoor scene and kind of the accessibility we have to play indoor at a high level in Australia because we don't have a college system. We don't have a professional league here. So if you want to chase indoor, it's external to Australia. And so it's kind of, we don't have the high level indoor day in, day out within Australia, which makes it tough. And then beach volleyball, it's two guys or girls on a court. A lot of it is kind of self-led because it's just the two of you. So, and you can kind of, you don't need necessarily like a body or organization behind you. If you want to do it yourself, you can fund it. You can travel overseas. You can go play tournaments. You can do it yourself if you really desire. And the qualification period, again, is basically on you. It's on your back. And so I think that's where kind of people see the beach pathway being better for the Olympics is if I really want it, then I can go and do it. And it's less people around me that I have to sort out and deal with.
It's probably a question, you might not be able to answer this, Mark, and by all means skip over it if you can't. But I mean, how are we right now in indoor volleyball tracking towards Brisbane? I mean, we haven't obviously had a men's team in the Olympics since London. Going to definitely have a team obviously in Brisbane, but are there prospects of qualifying for LA before Brisbane? Like how are we positioned in indoor volleyball, do you know right now?
Right now, I don't want to put a damper on it, but I think the focus has shifted towards Brisbane, right. Knowing that we will get that guaranteed host spot. So definitely looking towards 32 in the indoor scene. But we've got some of the best players in the world in our indoor national team, like the captain, Luke Perry. He plays overseas professionally. One of, if not the best libero in the world. So we've got glimpses of it. So it's just whether we can kind of build around that and really make a push for LA. It's probably going to be tough, but definitely possible. And then, looking to 2032, I think that's where the real focus is, and doing really well there.
Love just checking in sometimes in these sports, where we're, say, a big advocate for the sport of handball, for example, Mark, and it's sort of, that's definitely a sport which we're really never going to qualify when it comes to hosting an Olympics, but obviously, tracking to see how we're going in those cycles. You I believe, 2017 it was, really sort of trying your hand at beach volleyball, and within the space of a pretty short period of time, you're then going to Commonwealth Youth Games and then the Youth Olympics in 2018, which I'll touch on separately. But, I mean, how do you find the transition? You touched on you were doing social beach volleyball as it was, but is there much of a difficult transition when you're playing indoor volleyball, switching then maybe your focus a little bit more to beach volleyball at that period in your career?
I think like both indoor and beach, they're similar but very different, and they both help each other. Aspects of both. So for the whole kind of junior part of my career, I was playing both week in, week out, and training for indoor helped my beach volleyball. Training for beach volleyball helped my indoor. And it was only really kind of towards, not even sure what year, but almost towards 2021, where I made the move to Adelaide, was when I stopped playing indoor volleyball. Once I moved to the national.
You're still playing right up until then. You're still doing
still
indoor.
playing.
Wow.
I wasn't playing at the same level, but still playing most weeks. Again, like I played for the Queensland Pirates my entire way up until I moved to Adelaide to join the national program. So it was it's really one of those things. It's you can do both up until a point, probably when you really want to make that push. But yeah, definitely both aid each other, and I played both for a very long time.
It's one of those ones where I feel like it's on paper it's a dumb question when you say like differences, but like it sometimes there's a lot more to it than simple case of, well, there's more players on a team and you're playing on a different court, right? Because I can imagine that strategy when there's only two of you versus five of you, if I'm doing my maths correctly there. Like it's obviously like it's much different, and I'm sure that's adapting to that level of play. As a player is challenging in many aspects.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, so you've got a couple of differences. Obviously, the hard court versus the sand. The beach court is slightly smaller. It's the indoor court's 9x9, and then the beach court's 8x8.
Right.
And yeah, you got 6 players indoor, 2 players on the sand. And yeah, the strategy does change. Indoor, it's like play big, hit hard, kind of find gaps, crush the ball, serve tough. And then beach, less guys to defend. So it's more that strategy of you don't have to hit the ball hard every time. It's more about deception, strategy, show and take something else, fakes and all of that sort of stuff. So it's, I'm not going to say more intellectual, but it's definitely a more strategic part of the beach volleyball game.
I got a chance to see both in Paris, and this is a sport that I'd never seen in person, either of them. And the indoor one, it was simply a case of I was working table tennis. It was right next door. I had to write a story. Why not go sit in an indoor volleyball game? It was the quarterfinal between Germany and France in the men's. As you can imagine, it was a very raucous crowd, and it was incredible to watch. Like, just as you were saying, that power and just everything and the energy that it brought. But then watching beach in person too was incredibly fascinating. We will talk about the stadium, how incredible that was, but like just seeing that level of it, which I guess for volleyball aficionados, there's something in both versions that they get out of it, I can imagine.
100%. And like I was fortunate enough to go and watch the indoor in Paris as well. And watching volleyball in general, both beach and indoor, on a screen compared to watching it in person, I find is very different. Because when you're in person, you really see the true speed of how quick the ball's moving, and you can hear like the power, and like you're really like into it and how intense it is. So for me, yeah, going to watch the indoor in Paris, I was like, wow, like I miss this a lot. And just seeing the pure ball speed, you've got guys serving over 120 Ks an hour, and then guys on the other side just easily controlling it. And it's spectacular. And I think it's one of those sports both beach and indoor is I would love to see it grow across the world. And I think a lot of people just haven't had the chance to experience it in person, just purely accessibility wise, and especially in Australia. But once people do see it in person, they're like, oh, wow, like this is like quick, it's intense. There's points, like every point is worth something. So there's always something new going on and it's fast paced. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Couldn't agree more. It really is an incredible one to watch in person. I touched on there. So youth Commonwealth Games and Youth Olympics in a pretty short period of time. You won bronze with your partner at the time, James Tacken, in that was in the Bahamas, and then the Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires finished ninth. Looking back on those moments, how helpful were they just on that multi-sport environment to kind of prepare you for Paris? Because I always love hearing this from our guests on the show who maybe have been to a Youth Olympics, because you're experiencing other athletes, other sports, you're representing your country. There's, lots going on. Like, did you feel that sort of in hindsight now helped you towards the Olympics in Paris?
Definitely. The going to the multi-sport events is very different to when you go and just play like a beach volleyball event. Beach volleyball event, like even the world tour, we're super close with our competitors. Like we all stay in the same hotel, we eat meals at the same time, and you're kind of in and around it, and you're in your own little bubble. And then the multi-sport comes along, and it's like, rather than it being you're eating with your competitors from other countries in the same sport, you're eating with other Australians from other sports. And you have a million conversations, and similar to what we're doing, you just learn the ins and outs of all these other sports, the similarities, the differences. And then it kind of, for me, like in Paris, it was the same in Buenos Aires and the Bahamas. You just want to get out and watch everything else. Like
Yeah.
I've never become so much of a sport fan in my life as I was at these events. And it definitely is challenging though, because it's so many more distractions and it can take away from you focusing on your own competition, which is an element in itself. But definitely having those previous experiences helped in Paris to some extent, until I got there and I was like, this is just the youth on absolute steroids, and it's really hard to not have FOMO of everything, and you want to do and see everything. And it can be draining, but you're potentially only there once in your life. So you've got to soak it up. And then when it comes time to focus on your own competition, then you've got to kind of lock it all out.
And the depth of talent that we are now seeing, obviously, I mean, we're big fans of the Youth Olympics on this show, Mark, and we actually earlier this year, covered them for the winter ones, first times that we've done in a while. But like you look at who ultimately won the gold medal in Buenos Aires, the Swedish pair that I'm not even going to attempt to mention their last names, David and Jonathan, because I'm going to butcher them because I'm terrible at pronouncing names on this show. But they obviously win the gold in Paris. So clearly it's that sort of learning ground and that those steps that the talent just, blossoms, and that it obviously goes on then to the full Olympics. So, I mean, it's obviously building experience from everything, as you're saying, from multisport to obviously competing on a world stage, because this event has blossomed future Olympic gold medalists.
It's proof in the pudding. And the Swedish guys, like if anyone ever gets a chance to watch them, it's incredible. They're so young and they have just taken over the beach volleyball world. They've changed the game, the way it's played. And like everyone's almost in shock of like how good these guys are and how young they are and how quickly they were able to do it. And so, yeah, I think the game they were playing back in Buenos Aires too was very basic compared to the game they're playing now, but it's that kind of fundamentals of they put it on show there, and then the way they've evolved in the next however many years to where they are now is incredible. And going on with the Youth Olympics, you've got other guys too, like Rinky Hijikata, tennis player. I met him in Buenos Aires, and we became quite close friends. And then we've gotten to see each other and only a few times. We catch up in Melbourne because we're both all over the world. But when we're in the same place, we'll try and catch up for dinner. And then I went and watched him at the Australian Open last year. And then we got to catch up again in Paris. So it was like we met there, and then we've both followed each other's journey from where we were to where we are now, and then kind of a culmination in Paris was very cool.
Because I love hearing that with sort of those combinations you can make, because beach volleyball is obviously an exception. You've got like a Commonwealth Games generally, that you can go to. So there's a few maybe different multi-sport events you can go to, but there are some athletes who the Olympics are it. Like they don't have a Commonwealth Games or maybe a Youth Olympics, but it's those experiences of, as you were saying, sharing stories, because you're all athletes. You're all in this epic journey around the world trying to be the best you can be in your sport together. So it's meeting friends, and I'm sure sharing very similar stories, even though your sports maybe aren't that connected.
Yeah. And I think that's what really makes it exciting, and like just sharing even training methods of, how do you guys train? What does your prep look like for tournaments? And it's so different, and funding models, and what the access is overseas, what other countries do, and just learning all the ins and outs, and then sharing and complaining about the same issues that are in every sport. It just gives you something to kind of connect about. And I think even learning the intricacies of different sports that you wouldn't have an idea about if you kind of didn't really pay too close attention, or if you weren't in that sport, like the different pressure of a tennis ball and how it affects play, and the different surfaces, what the temperature does to the court, the balls. And it's like all these things that in your own sport, like for us, the wind, the rain, different sand. You can have a million different types of sand, and it can affect the game incredibly. Whereas people who don't know beach volleyball probably like, oh yeah, all the sand's similar or the same or whatever. Whereas for us, we're like, some tournaments, it's like, yes, this sand is perfect. Other tournaments, it's like, I want to quit. This sucks. So yeah, it's really interesting learning all of those different things.
Did you have a sport that you discovered, and this could be in Paris as well, or back in Buenos Aires, that you saw and that all of a sudden you fell in love with, that you never thought, hey, I'm a mad table tennis fan now, or something similar to that?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think watching Jess Fox was pretty cool, kind of in the AOC building with everyone around. And I was like, wow, paddle's like, it's fierce, and it's pretty incredible, the brute strength required, and kind of watching Jess just absolutely dominate was really cool. And then another one, the Genevieve in the modern pentathlon.
Yes,
we were in the gym.
Yes.
We were in the gym at the same time, and she was practicing with the laser gun. And so I was like, oh, like, can I have a go? And so I shot it a few times at the target. Safe to say I didn't even get close. And then we kind of had a little 1v1, and I got absolutely destroyed. But I think even just doing that, it's like just trying another sport and seeing how hard it really is. kind of gives you that extra like
Perspective
appreciation
to kind of look at it. Yeah.
for what other people are doing. So yeah, I think definitely just almost all the sports like you fall in love with. And in Paris, I was some days I'd watch sport for 8 hours straight. And afterwards you're drained. It's
Yeah.
actually quite draining on the body of like you're just watching, cheering along the whole day. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's one in particular, but I think just you you see all the stories and they're each different in their own right.
You got modern pentathlon in there, Mark. That makes me happy. It's one of my favourite sports. So, we'll take that as a win. Before we get to sort of Paris and particularly the unique qualifying that you sort of you get there, sort of that journey beforehand. So you switch partners. So you team up with Izac. You basically winning medals straight away when you're partnering up. You're getting ninth at the World Championships in 2022. You're doing pretty well. I mean, I know you've talked a lot about in the past about that importance of forming that relationship with your partner and everything along those lines. But what was it about Izac that sort of when you teamed up that sort of this seemed to click, that you guys seemed to just do so well straight away from the beginning?
Yeah, so Isaac and we are very, very similar people. Off the court, we met and we became great friends instantly. I remember going to his family home in Manly, and I just fit in with his family. Maybe they won't like it sharing, or my mum won't like me sharing, but both our households we swear a lot, and like I instantly just walking in, I felt like I could, and I felt like I belonged there. So we always had this connection off the court that we definitely made prosper on the court of having fun together and enjoying it together. And everything we did was because we loved doing it together. And that first year, 2022, like we call it our breakout year. And we just said, like, almost we were just like back against the wall. People were telling us we can't do this, can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're not ready for that. And we were like, nah, we're going to do it. We're going to chase the next opportunity, the higher one until we get knocked off our pedestal. And we just want to keep chasing because our philosophy was you never know when you're going to break through. So if you don't put yourselves in the deep end situations against the best of the best, how do you know when you're going to break through? So yeah, we went from playing the very bottom level on the world tour to getting a ninth at world champs all within 6 months. And our plan before that had been to play 6 of the low level world tour events spread out throughout the year. So that's what our year was going to look like. World champs was never on the horizon. So, and we kind of went against what the federation wanted at times and kind of put it on our own back. And I think if we didn't have the relationship we had, then we would have had no success in doing that, and I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Wow, what an incredible story. And I can imagine then that also, does that change a few goals in moving forward that, wow, okay, ninth at the World Championships, Olympics are about 2 years away. This is maybe on the horizon now, and I don't know if it was at the time, but I mean, that kind of maybe changed things up for that cycle towards Paris.
Definitely. And it was always, we knocked something off. So it was like ninth at world champs. And then it was like, all right, what's next? What can we chase next as the next best thing? And then 2023 comes around and we have a pretty shocking year, to be frank. And it kind of almost all came tumbling down, and we got put into our place and we weren't performing well. And and then we faced all the challenges of sometimes we stopped having that enjoyment for the sport because we put all this pressure on ourselves of we should be performing at this level, and now we've got these expectations and like, why aren't we doing this? And we need to be better and all of this. And you go through those month or two long periods of going, oh God, like, what are we doing? And then we kind of took a big reset moment just before the qualifying period for Paris started, and kind of re-looked at it and tried to recreate that spark that it was in 2022 and what we had created there and why we were successful, and tried to go back there, which definitely helped.
Which ultimately you leave it to the very last minute to qualify, Mark. Like, we're literally talking the last minute. This is weeks away from Paris. I mean, just take us through that qualifying event, because the final, I believe, so this is the Asian Continental Cup. You're up against a Chinese pair. You're down at one point, I believe, or twice a match point in this game. And this is winner takes all. So the winner of this is to the Olympics, I can imagine. So, I mean, take us through that and take us through the moment when you eventually overcome the pair to win it. And then now after everything you just talked on, you are going to the Olympics.
Yeah, so for those who don't know how beach volleyball qualification works, you've got your top 16 teams through world ranking, and then you've got your continental spots, so one per continental zone. And how it works differently for each zone, but essentially it's one tournament right before, a couple of weeks before the Olympics. It's Davis Cup style, so 2 teams per country, 8 countries, and team 1 versus team 1, team 2 versus team 2. If it's 2-0 to a country, they progress through, other countries out, single elimination basically. So you've got to win quarters, semis, finals. If it's 1-1, then each country picks 4 players in any combination out of the 2 teams. So you can take someone from this team, someone from this team, and you literally write it down on a piece of paper, the 2 players, and then you play off in a golden match. Winner of that match goes through. And so it's pretty brutal. It's all single elimination, and then winner at the end gets a spot for their country for the Olympics. So we played Qatar in our first round.
They're pretty good at beach volleyball, right? Qatar are a decent country when it comes to beach volleyball.
their top team had qualified through world ranking, so they weren't playing. So played Qatar first round, both us and the other guys won. Played Indonesia in the second round, both us and the other guys won. And then, we were up against China in the final round, and both games happened at the same time as well. So team 1 versus team 1 on center court, and then team 2 versus team 2. So you have no idea what's going on the other court. So, and there's all these like rules of like, oh yeah, if you win, then you come into the other venue to support for the rest of the game, or if you lose, you don't come in. So then you're not a distraction or anything like that. And
wow,
there's so many like mental things, and our game against China, the first game it went to a third set, and we were down a match point, and this crazy point happened, and it still makes me sick watching it back today. Like, we were down and out and somehow won this point and then won that match. And it was like the relief of winning that match. It was like, holy, like we were done. We were down and out, and then finished the match, look up at the coach, and he's just given a thumb down to say the guys on the other court had lost. So it means nothing.
Oh, no. Wow.
So it was 1-1. But then it was also like the relief of, had we have lost that match point, that was it. We were done. So got through that, and then we had to back it up an hour later against the same team.
And this is in
Same
China
course.
too, to interrupt quickly.
This
So
is
I can imagine
in
the crowd
China.
is very
Yeah.
against you guys.
Yeah, home crowd. And so we had an hour to prepare, same team, same court, for a spot at the Olympics. And we went out and we lost the first set, and then we were down, I think it was 12-8 in the second set, to 21. So yeah, down a set, down 12-8. And it was like, oh wow, like that was the moment. It was like, oh, this is really slipping away. And somehow we fought back again in that second match, had 2 match points down, got through them both and ended up winning. And I think that point of winning was one of the best feelings in the world. There's a photo of Izac and I, and kind of the look in his eye. It was like he was blank, just like staring at me. And yeah, it was a pretty special moment. And I think because it came so far down to the wire, that just made it more special.
And to clarify, by winning that match, so that had qualified Australia, but had you and Izac, so you then still had to be selected, correct?
Yeah. So we got a spot for Australia, which, yeah, again, and it's brutal like that. It was, even though we did as much as we could, it went to a selection panel, and it wasn't guaranteed that we were going.
But surely you kind of in the back of your mind were like, well, we worked our asses off for this, so surely we're in with a good shot.
Yeah, yeah. And literally after the final point and we won the match, like I went to Izac and like dapped him up, and I was like, we're going to the Olympics.
You can say it. You can say it. Your mum can just skip forward this part. You can say it, Mark.
Yeah. And so that was a pretty special moment of, I think we both knew deep down, but there's always the chance. So it's hard to fully celebrate. And then you've also got the guys who helped you get there, and, you know, they want to celebrate as well. But if they know they're not getting selected or stuff like that, it's tough, especially being a 2-team qualifier. So yeah, it was quite a unique night. The last night in China, of vibes were weird. Izac and I were on top of the world, and but it just felt weird.
Put that into context. This is at the end of June. You're officially announced at the beginning of July, and 3 weeks later you're at the opening ceremony. So, I mean, that's kind of leaving it a little bit late there, Mark. But, I mean, obviously you get there. I mean, were you sort of having to keep July open and sort of plan things around life, around work, around things like that? Or like, because it was so late, are you then all of a sudden ringing up the job, ringing up family and friends going, hey guys, yeah, cancel plans in July, we're going to France. You know, this has come about pretty quickly.
It was very much like planned for. It's hard because I was very much like, I don't want to speak about Paris. I don't, like, my family, all of them, I said, I do not want you to talk to me at all about Paris until like I qualify and everything. Like, I don't want to hear about it. So they had their own group chat about, oh, if he makes it, we'll get this accom, these flights, all of this. And for me, it was like, it was planned for the best. And then kind of, if we didn't make it, then go into hibernation for a month or so, and really contemplate life. But fortunately didn't have to do that. And I really, I don't know what it would have been like. because I think it would have been a really, really tough time. And so many athletes face that. And I can't even begin to imagine how tough that would be. Um, kind of, especially that late, if you were to find out you didn't qualify and then everything for the next month is just Olympics, Olympics,
Yeah.
Olympics.
Can't avoid it. Yeah.
It's brutal in that sense.
So many, it's the fascinating world of the Olympics where some sports you're qualifying a year out and you've got a year to sit back and relax. And then others, you case in point, a lot of our Winter Olympians, it's literally, weeks, days sometimes before the Olympics. It really is fascinating how that works. I mean, ultimately, of course, you go. And the first time since Athens that Australia had sent 2 male pairs to beach volleyball. And I believe you were also the second youngest. You and Izac were the second youngest ever male team ever sent to the Olympics in beach volleyball itself. Do you have any opportunity, given it had been so close to those games, that when you land in Paris to kind of soak it up a little bit? You obviously do the opening ceremony, which I want to ask on about separately, but are you soaking it in, or is it because it's so rapid you're having to focus on the fact that you got to compete at the Olympics, so you're sort of more focused on the training aspect rather than soaking up that you're at an Olympic Games?
We got there, I think, on the 21st. I think we checked into the village, and then um, I can't remember what day our first competition was. 24th, maybe. Um, It was the day after the opening ceremony, but yeah, it was kind of like the first 24, 48 hours. Like, coach was like, just go explore, see the village, see what's going on, talk to everyone. And then it was kind of the moment we step foot onto the bus to training is none of that matters. It's full focus from the moment we step on that bus to the moment we get back into the village. And then you're free to kind of let your mind roam a little bit and go and explore and do everything, do all the activities and swap badges and pins and all the like. So definitely had some time to explore at the start, which I think was really good. And you need it because your mind's going million miles an hour, and you do need an outlet to do it. And even one of the other guys, Zach Schubert, he was in the other team, and at one point he was like, I just need to have a nap. Like, it was middle of the day. Like, I just need to have a nap. Like, there's so much going on. I just need to kind of reset and just take some time. And it's 100% like that. You're running on adrenaline. You're probably sleeping a bit less than you would at any other tournament. But that's just the nature of the beast.
So much was said in the lead up about the stadium, about how amazing and how spectacular. And one of the big selling points, obviously, of the Olympics was the fact that they were going to have beach volleyball underneath the Eiffel Tower. Do you remember the moment when you first got to the venue and you saw it in person?
Yeah. So we trained the first night we got to the village. We trained at 9 p.m. that night, and so it was dark, but we showed up at the stadium, and we were the only ones training at that time. And so it was kind of surreal having the whole place to ourselves, and there was just the few volunteers around. And you walk in, and the training courts are even closer to the Eiffel Tower than the actual stadium itself. So you're literally trying to focus and train, and then you've just got this big metal thing in the sky. It's like it's so hard to avoid. And safe to say our first training was pretty abysmal because we were a bit distracted. But yeah, it definitely didn't get old, and it was very hard to kind of try and remove it from while you were playing. But yeah, it was so surreal, and kind of that moment of like, this is real. Yeah, it was very special.
Are you able to set, I mean, given the last minute nature of your qualification, do you and Izac sort of sit down and set a goal, a target sort of for what you want to achieve? I mean, again, it's probably a dumb question, Mark, so I can imagine, yeah, of course we want to win a medal, but like, do you sit down and go, okay, well, this is how we're going to get to a medal? What goals did you essentially set yourself going into the tournament?
Yeah, so and again, like before Paris, we were like, okay, we don't need to talk about anything to do with Paris until we qualify. Everything is on Continental Cup and qualifying, and then once we finish that, then we can focus. So we sat down and we had a meeting, and the goal is obviously the gold medal. But for us, you kind of step that back a little bit, and it's the goal is getting out of pool. That's the first stage that you have to cross. So we did everything in our power to make that happen, and we were very set on not just being there to participate in the Olympics. We were there to compete and go as deep into the draw as we possibly could.
Which is a very tough group that you obviously do get drawn into. Obviously, we mentioned the Qataris and the Swedes going on to win the gold as well. I mean, when is that draw done? Is that draw done like right beforehand, or were you sort of aware of your opponents a little bit more in advance?
So that draw was done before we had officially been selected to the public. So we weren't allowed to tell friends and family that we had been selected, yet the draw had our names on it and our pool. So that was just the technicalities of it. But yeah, you have time to put into scouting and know your opponents inside and out. And yeah, it was a tough pool. Obviously, yeah, Swedes #1 in the world, end up getting a gold medal. Qataris bronze in Tokyo, and then the Italians, Nicolai, having a silver in 2012. So you're surrounded by greatness, but we definitely had our opportunities, and it's hard to look back on it because we were so close, but we fell short, and that's just what we have to live with.
Is it a case, though, now that a little bit more time has passed, that I'm sure all the times you got to ask, like, how do you reflect on your performance? How do you think you went? That changes, I can imagine, from the day you're eliminated to now, a week away from the end of the year. I mean, where are you at right now, Mark, with sort of how you and Izac performed, and what do you take away from those matches that maybe is helping you go towards LA with what you did in Paris?
For me, I'm after kind of the reflection of the 3 games, I'm more motivated and hungry to go again for LA than I ever have been. And it's like that level of desire now is through the roof. And it's looking back on all those games of just the small things that I can do better, the big things I can do better. And now that we have been to the Olympics, I don't just want to go to the Olympics again in LA. It's like, if I'm going because I believe and I want to get a medal. So now it's kind of that shift of 4 years now to take it to the level we were at, and then like blow it through the roof to medal in LA. So a lot of work to do, but yeah, I think just going to Paris was the most motivating thing ever.
get the first one over and done with, so that you can obviously then go towards LA and then ultimately get to Brisbane and defend your gold medal on a home court, right? That's what we want.
That would be pretty cool.
I think so. Because Australia, men's beach volleyball, no medal, obviously, on the men's side of things, which we can beat that in LA. But I just think moving forward towards Brisbane, because you were, I believe, born in the year 2000, so I'm not going to ask you, do you remember watching those Olympics, because you clearly don't. But one of my biggest memories, and I think a lot of people watching those Olympics, was that journey of Natalie and Kerry, and just, Bondi, and just everything that turned into as one of the most memorable events at the entire Olympics. So I think we're hopefully going to be tracking on that same level. And if we've got a venue, do we know where the beach volleyball is going to be at Brisbane yet? Have they decided which beach that's going to be at yet?
No. I haven't heard anything yet locked in. So
plenty to choose from in Queensland. No shortage exactly. of. No, we don't obviously have the Eiffel Tower, but was it the Commonwealth Games? Was it Surfers Paradise? Was it not, from memory? So
Coolangatta.
Yeah. So plenty to choose from. Again, this is sort of a side question. I'll come back to Paris in a sec, but I can imagine that's extra motivation. You're still very young, Mark. Obviously, you're still only 24. So by the time of Brisbane, you're only going to be 32. It's younger than I am right now, but I can imagine that's still a big motivation, that a home Olympics is on the horizon. No matter how LA goes, you've then got another 4 years towards playing literally in your own backyard as a Queenslander.
Yeah, and I think I've been very fortunate my whole career to kind of be the right time, right place. So Youth Com Games, Youth Olympics. The only reason I got to go to them was because I was born in the right year, which made me kind of top age for those events. So very lucky. And then to have the opportunity Paris, the coolest stadium in the world, and that being the Olympics, my first Olympics, it was that's just right time, right place, very lucky. And to have the opportunity to finish my career at home as a third Olympics would be pretty incredible. And for sure, that's something I'd love to strive to. And in beach volleyball, you don't really peak until, apart from the Swedes that are exceptional, you can kind of peak late 20s to early 30s. So it's primed to set up and
just warming up. That's what you're saying. You're a spring chicken, Mark, in the world of beach volleyball. You got plenty of time to keep pushing towards that. I'd love to hear the Paris experiences. So I believe you did the opening and the closing ceremony. So from getting absolutely pissed on with rain on the Seine to hanging out in a closing ceremony stadium with Tom Cruise. How do you sort of balance those two bookend of experiences in Paris?
I definitely preferred the opening ceremony. It was unbelievable. And I think the rain just added another element to it. Kind of everyone just embraced it and was we had the ponchos, and then everyone was just we're going to get saturated anyway, so just embrace it. And once we kind of did that, it just added to the fun of it all. And that was I don't know if you've seen the photos, but I was the only one for some reason to take a selfie stick to the opening ceremony. So
I saw the video, but yeah.
I'd like to say that I got the best content of anyone at the opening ceremony. And yeah, it was incredible. It was hard to capture the moment and be in the moment. And, but it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. And there was a point beforehand where, because we were competing the next day, we had to decide whether we wanted to go or not, if it would have an impact on our competition. So we kind of had to sit down and have that discussion. But I was always of the opinion even if I was playing at 8 a.m. the next morning, there was not a chance I was going to miss the
I love
opening
that, Mark.
ceremony.
That's my opinion.
Um,
I look at those swimmers and I go, dude, come on, it's the opening ceremony. You just get up early. A couple hours sleep. Come on.
yeah, and it's one of those things. It was like at the time, I'm not sure if this is going to be once in a lifetime. Like it very
Yeah,
well could be
exactly.
once in a lifetime. So I didn't want to regret not going. And had I have seen the photos now and not been there, I would have been very regretful of that decision. So yeah, it was one of those things. And then again with the closing ceremony, I was like, have to go. Can't miss that. And then it was to be completely honest, like in terms of the process in the lead up, like we were standing on the bitumen in the sun for nearly 3 hours waiting for a bus. But the pre closing ceremony and the post closing ceremony were phenomenal, and they I think that's why the closing ceremony itself was probably not as good as we would have hoped, because the whole lead up to it, the few hours beforehand, just with the Australian contingent in the building and on the rooftop was very fun, and that was awesome. And I think we were all just looking forward to getting back and continuing that after the closing ceremony.
And I think, the one that I keep bringing up too is I think the lull went out of that stadium when people realized that Snoop Dogg wasn't going to be there. I feel that excitement level was building up. Like Tom Cruise had jumped in, Simone Biles on the stage. We're like, yeah, here we go. LA, Snoop Dogg, bring him up. Oh, he's in LA. Screw that. And everybody, the whole stadium just seemed to just deflate at that moment, did it not?
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why we all thought the same thing, that the kind of presentation of LA was going to be something really cool in person, and then it was the video, and so it was it took away from it a little bit.
Just note to Brisbane and note to the LA. Let's have the Brisbane handover ceremony happen in SoFi. I this whole transition on the beach, like, yeah, sure, great, but we need to have it in the stadium. That's all I'm saying right now. Let's have you and Izac playing beach volleyball in SoFi Stadium, handing over to the 2032. That's fun. We could do that, couldn't we?
I agree. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That was two things I wanted to touch on though that I love on your social media is that you got nice up close and personal with Carl Stefanovic. You had a nice little interview with Carl. What's it like hanging out with Carl Stefanovic? I mean, he seems like a guy that would be great to hang out with.
He's a loose unit, and like I've watched the Today Show since I was very, very young. Growing up, before going to primary school, Today Show was always on the TV when we woke up, and so that was another one of those moments of like, this is so cool. It's like I'm getting to dap up Carl on national TV and have an interview with him, and then just have a chat to him like off camera before and after the interview. And yeah, it was so cool. And I'm not going to say it was a dream come true, but it was like one of those moments of like what am I doing right now? And we were just
with
like,
Carl Stefanovic.
yeah,
Why not?
Yeah, it was crazy.
What does he say to you? What does Carl Stefanovic say to you before and after an interview? Maybe you're not. I don't know if you're allowed to tell me or not, Mark. But I'd love to know.
I probably won't repeat some of the words on here. But no, he just gave us some motivating words to go out and beat the Swedes the next day, and and just was questioning about what the village was like and everything like that.
Fantastic. The other one I love on your Instagram, it looks like you had a bit of fun working at the cafe, being a bit of a barista. Obviously very popular, the Australian barista in the Olympic Village. But I mean, what's that like, getting a chance at behind the machine and getting on there to get a bit of time on the barista machine?
That was so cool. And I think like that was something that just another thing that set the Australian building apart. And God, those poor baristas, they got slammed like every day, day in, day out. And I think they embraced that really well. They got to know everyone. They really were part of the team. And yeah, more than welcome to come behind, learn. And it's funny, actually, I just bought a coffee machine, recommendation from Josh, who was one of the baristas. And so I've been messaging him since Paris. And
Great.
so he recommended me a machine. So I got that, and then gonna get my beans from him as well. And
Brilliant.
then he's gonna teach me to pour the perfect latte art and everything. So it's just another one of those relationships that was built there, and now it's kind of continued on. And I think the rest of my caffeinated days will be sourced from his beans at Locale. So
everybody hit up Mark
very
for his
good.
going to his house for coffees. You need to tell you one person you need to connect with. Zach's Double D Cook. When we had him on the show, I think we spent most of the interview talking about coffee. So he's a coffee fiend.
Yeah, I've been seeing all his stuff, and so I'll definitely be hitting him up for some tutorials, because at the moment I'm pretty useless.
Well, I think we need to get a bunch of the Olympians from the summer games to go to Italy, for Milan for the winters, and coffee capital of the world essentially over there in Italy. So I feel our winter athletes in 2026, Mark, are going to be like absolutely loving life. Maybe our barista is going to be put out of business before they even walk into the village. Like, we're in Italy, we don't need a barista now. So, don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Australian coffee is a bit better than Italian coffee.
Oh, they're fighting words. I think you're
unpopular opinion.
A few people right now just tuned out of this podcast, but I'm open for that debate. It's funny, actually, here in New York, they have Australian-style cafes, which always baffles me that it's like, well, shouldn't it be Italian? Like, didn't we steal our culture from Italy? So, hey,
it's different around the world. I think it's hard to find good coffee kind of while you're traveling. And you find these little specialty cafes in every country. So we found a couple in Bangkok, and then in Germany as well. And you go there, and it's like everything they do is just about like making the perfect latte. And even one tournament we played in Chiang Mai in Thailand, they won the World Latte Art Championship.
Wow.
And so we went there, and they did latte art of like a volleyball player hitting a ball.
Oh, wow.
Which was incredible. And you just find these little specialty cafes in the most random parts of the world.
I'm blown away by this, Mark. This is fascinating. I want to actually, the last question I want to ask you then, you're living in Adelaide right now, host city, of course, of the 2025 World Beach Volleyball Championships. Where's the best place for coffee in Adelaide?
Definitely my place. There's a few really, really good cafes that I'd recommend. So just down the road, Bloom Cafe.
Okay.
Recently opened Pom Pom Avenue. They'd love me for giving a shout out there.
All the shout outs, that's what we want.
But there's a lot of really good coffee in Adelaide. It's not hard to find.
All right, so is it becoming like, obviously big rivalry with Melbourne? Are they just kind of like we're good at coffee too, Melbourne? It's not just all about you, right?
Well, the suburb I live in now, Brompton, and like Brompton and Bowden, I call it the Melbourne of Adelaide. It's kind of all your young hipster kind of population, like wine bars, cafe culture. So I describe it as the Melbourne of Adelaide, and that's where I'm living at the moment.
But it's funny you say that, Mark, because like growing up in Hobart, there would be always that case of, oh, this is turning into the Melbourne of Hobart. And then having lived in Sydney recently, this is the Melbourne. Isn't it funny how Melbourne kind of just etches its way into all cities? And this is why I try to sell when I'm overseas. I want to go to Australia. I'm like, yeah, go to Melbourne, don't go to Sydney. Hey, it works, right? Like it's the culture of Melbourne. It spreads everywhere, right?
It is, exactly. And they've stamped that brand of even the fashion. It's just like there is like a stereotype Melbourne. So
and neither of us are from Melbourne. Here we are celebrating a city that neither of us are even from. So,
exactly.
It works a treat. It works a treat. Mark, this has been an absolute pleasure for people who want to follow your journey between now and LA and everything else in between. Social media, Instagram, TikTok, where can people follow you?
Yeah, so just at Mark Nicolaidis on Instagram. That would be the biggest one. Trying to get better at posting more. Definitely need to make the most of that. And then I do have TikTok as well. Same, just at Mark Nicolaidis. I've only posted 5 videos on there, and they were just from Paris trying to go viral. And then it's been dormant ever since. But thinking of starting up a little series of learning to teaching myself how to pour the perfect latte. So I was
going to say, get coffee onto TikTok. That would get you
if people
viral.
are interested in that, then I'll make sure I kick that up. But yeah,
you and Zach need to team up. TikTok, I'm thinking podcast. I'm just like, 2 Olympians coming together, and this goes back to what you're talking about before, from different sports, different worlds, but a love of coffee. I'd tune into that every single day.
100%. Zach and I get along well too, so
there you go. Look at that.
We'll have to make something happen there.
Hey, there you go. And he get his Olympic medals rubbing off, and then you'll get more gold than he will by the time you get to Brisbane. He's only got 1. You can have 2 by Brisbane. There you go.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Easy. Done. You're welcome. Mark, pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with everything moving forward.
Thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it.